About 15 years ago, in late September, my friend Josh and I decided we wanted to go camping. We lived in California, so the weather was pretty good year-round. Josh and I were always getting into trouble for doing stupid things we had no right to be doing, such as putting Mentos and Coke bottles behind grocery stores, skipping school to hang out by the river, going to the park late at night and yelling like coyotes. You know, stupid teenager things. We were both 17 at the time, and only Josh had his license. Both of our parents were pretty protective, so there was no way they were going to let us go camping just by ourselves. So we both lied to our parents and said we were going to stay the night at each other's houses. Josh picked me up from my house around 3 p.m., and we stopped at the grocery store to get a bunch of junk food for camping. After that, we waited for his dad to leave for work so we could sneak into his parents' garage and get the camping supplies. By the time we were done with all of this, we had gotten on the road about 4:30 p.m. The campsite was a fair distance away, but luckily Josh had a tendency to speed, so we managed to get to the campgrounds around 6 p.m. When we arrived, we noticed that the entrance parking lot was pretty empty. In the vast space, there was just another car, as well as the park ranger's truck. We headed to the front booth and asked the woman who was attending it which campsites were available. She let us know that out of about 60 sites, only one was taken, and it was at the far end of the park. Josh and I knew we were going to probably be loud and make a bunch of noise, so we decided to take the campsite on the opposite end. The way that this campground was set up was that you had to park your car at the entrance of the state park and then haul your camping gear to your campsite. We didn't bring a wagon, so we had to make a couple of trips to bring the tent, sleeping bags, cooler, and groceries. To save time on the last trip to the car, I told Josh to start setting up the tent and that I would go back to the car to bring the last 2 bags of groceries. It was quite a distance away, about 10 minutes to get to the car and back. I was starting to think that picking a camping spot at the far end of the park was a dumb idea. The sun had already started to set when I was walking back. I kept hearing pine cones and small twigs fall from the trees, as well as the sounds of squirrels and chipmunks running through the bushes. It's funny that even in a state park, you feel as if at any moment you could be ambushed by a bear or a mountain lion. At least, that is what I thought. I was pretty much on edge the whole way back to camp because of how dim the tall pine trees made the forest path. When I arrived, Josh was about halfway done setting up the tent. He mentioned that I should probably start on the fire, otherwise we were going to have a rough time looking around camp. By the time the tent was fully set up and I had got the fire started, the sun had completely gone down, and now only our little campfire was lighting our surroundings. "Dude, I told you we were going to need flashlights," I said to Josh.
"Well, I thought we were going to be able to bring our car to the campsite, so I didn't think it was going to take us until night to set up. My bad,"
he said. We had enough firewood to last us the whole night with no problem, but we wanted to be very cautious with the amount of firewood that we used so it would last the whole night. Because of this, we decided we should probably eat dinner early so we wouldn't be hungry late into the night. I threw a couple of logs on the fire and broke out a package of hot dogs and buns from the cooler. "How many do you want?" I said to Josh.
"Could you cook me 3? I'm going to go to the restroom, but I'll be right back,"
he said. "Yeah, sure, no problem. Do you want me to leave you out the mustard or ketchup?"
"Just mustard is fine."
Josh turned his flash on his phone and then started to walk toward the restrooms, which were located in the center of the park. As I put the hot dogs on the skewers, I watched Josh and his phone light fade off into the dark forest, along with the sounds of his footsteps. And then that feeling, that same uneasy feeling that I had earlier, started to creep back up into my head. I got up and propped the skewers on the picnic table and threw a couple of large dry logs on the fire so I would have some extra light in the area. The fire now crackled bright and healthy. I could see in all directions very clearly, and I started to feel a little safer and at ease. I continued to cook the hot dogs and prepared my food to eat. I went to open YouTube on my phone so I could have some music or some video playing, but up here in the mountains, there was no signal at all, so instead, I just ate along to the sound of the fire. After some time, I began to notice that Josh had been gone for quite a while now. It didn't worry me too much. I thought that he might have been going number 2, but his food was beginning to get cold. I was about to get ready to turn my phone flash on and start walking toward the restrooms to see what was taking him so long. Just then, he came walking back into camp from the silhouette of the forest. "You scared the crap out of me," I said. "I didn't hear you or see your phone flashlight at all. Your hot dogs are on the picnic table, but they're probably cold and need to be heated up." He looked at the plate of hot dogs, and then at me, and then at the plate of hot dogs again, and sat down at the other end of the table, away from his food. "Are you okay? Did you have hemorrhoids or something?" I joked. He didn't say anything. He just looked into the fire. "Okay, weirdo. Well, I'm going to use the restroom, but I'll be back in a bit,"
Sleep.
he said. "What? It's only like 9:30,
Sleep.
he said again, this time more forcefully. "Dude, shut up and eat your hot dogs. Stop being weird." He stood up from the bench and walked inside of the tent. I heard some rustling, and then it stopped abruptly. Assuming he was trying to play some kind of weird act or joke, I turned the flash on my phone and started walking toward the restrooms. It was very hard to see any path or trail, just a faint yellow light in the distance from the street light in the parking lot entrance. I felt I was about halfway there when I tripped over a log and dropped my phone. "Fuck," I said under my breath. I started to feel around the ground, blindly searching for my phone. My hands were scraping all of the dried pine needles and dirt in an outwards fanning motion, until finally my hand met something warm. I thought it was a skunk or a possum, so I flinched back and stood still, trying to force my eyes to adjust to what was around me. I could faintly see a small white light on the ground to my left. It was coming from my phone, being camera side down in a bed of pine needles. I picked it up and looked around where I had fallen. What I thought was a small woodland creature was actually the arm of my friend Josh. Attached to it was his lifeless body on the ground, his empty, lifeless eyes staring back at me. His stomach and his intestines had been completely eviscerated from his body, along with the rest of his organs. I could see his spine and his ribs, nothing else. I instantly thought he had been attacked by a mountain lion, but even then, who the hell, or what the hell, was in the tent back at the campsite? My head started to spin. It suddenly felt like I had electricity running down my neck. I felt nauseous and sick, like I was going to throw up and faint at the same time. There was such a loud ringing in my ears, but I was still able to hear a voice in my head saying, "Run! Get out of there! Run! Move! Come on, run! Get out of there! Move!" over and over again. It seemed like I would never become unfrozen. Thankfully, my body automatically did a 180, and I started running toward the entrance of the parking lot. Josh's car keys bounced erratically in my pants pocket. I had a death grip on my phone. I was running so fast through the forest that all I could hear was the screaming of the wind in my ears, along with the voice inside my head saying, "Run! Get out of there! Run! Move! Come on, run! Get out of there! Move!" I kept hearing it over and over in my head, knowing that if I stopped, I could end up like Josh. I felt every creature in the forest watching me, like the earth beneath me was trying to swallow me whole. Every tree was trying to block me. The forest had now turned into my enemy. For a moment I thought I was going to lose my mind, until at last I had reached the edge of the parking lot. I ran down the gravel road and all the way up to Josh's car. I got in lightning fast, locked the door, quickly started the car, and floored it. As I was nearing the exit, I noticed the park ranger's truck was gone and that the lady who had been attending the entrance booth had left for the night. I turned onto the main road and tried calling 911 from my phone, but there was absolutely no signal. I drove about 25 minutes to get to the nearest gas station and parked my deceased friend's car right up to the entrance. Once I ran inside, I told the cashier I needed to use their landline phone to call the cops. When the police had got there, I gave them my story. They thought I was just some dumb kid who was acting out. They gave me a breathalyzer test, which I passed. It was concerning to them that I was driving Josh's car this far away from home without Josh in it, and they saw that I had a state park pass on the dashboard. Because of this, they did send a couple of cars up to the park to look for Josh. When they got to the park, they looked around for a body, or signs of a struggle, or someone in the tent. There was nothing. They questioned the other campers that had been on the other side of the park, whether they had heard anything that night, whether they heard fighting or gunshots, and they said no. They soon had bloodhounds search the area, and no one and no animal could find a trace of Josh. He was just gone. My childhood friend of 10 years was taken by something that night, and I will never know what the hell it was. To this day, whenever I am driving on the road and I pass by a dense collection of trees, that feeling of being watched comes back to me. But it is not bears or mountain lions that I fear anymore.